Special Deputy Clerk. And I tell you, I'm honored to have been appointed as such by Twyla. I want to welcome everyone to the Selectmen's meeting for the town of Lisbon, the council meeting for the town of Lisbon on December 7th. One of the anomalies some people feel of the charter is that after an election, when it comes time for the new council, because there is no council, the clerk actually gets you through the first part of this. And Twyla has asked me for the second year in a row if I would assist her on this, and I'm always happy to do it. And Twyla always says such nice things about me that I feel like I should come and do this. I do just want to say very briefly before we get to the rest of this that today is December 7th, which is a day that a lot of people have in this room probably don't remember specifically, but we certainly have heard about it, and it marked a turning point for the United States and a very significant conflict. And I think that it's important that we keep that in mind, but I also think it's important that we keep in mind that some 60-odd years later, that conflict is over. And there's a new world order, and people who were sworn enemies are getting along and are cooperating. And no matter what petty or not so petty arguments and fusses that we have here in our town, and I've lived through several of them, at some point they're going to pass, and we're going to need to get along. And it's important to realize that just because I disagree with you or you disagree with me, that neither one of us has a monopoly on being right. And I just urge us all to keep that in mind as we move forward, that things are bad, things may get worse, things eventually are going to get better. And if we don't believe that things are going to get better, I don't think any of us would bother to show up here and take the positions we do. And when we do take positions, I just hope that we remember that we need to be respectful to one another as we move forward. So with my little sermon over, I'd like to introduce the color guard. Okay. Please stand.
Color.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order. Color. Colors. Post. Arm. Left. Right. Forward. March.
Please be seated. In November, there were several positions open up for election, and the first group of the town councilors for a 3-year term. The candidates were Fern La Rochelle, Richard Graham, and Dorothy Fitzgerald. And of those three, Fern La Rochelle was elected. On the town council for District 1, Gina Mason ran unopposed and was elected. And in District 2, James Lemieux and Roger Bickford ran, and Roger Bickford was elected. And if those three individuals, who I know are here, would please stand, my boss will administer your oath of office.
Please raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I, and state your name,
I, Fern Laurishow,
Peter Mason,
I, Roger
do
Bickford.
do solemnly swear
do
solemnly
solemnly
swear
swear
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution
the Constitution
and will obey the laws
and will obey the laws
of the United States
of the United States
and of the state of Maine,
and of the state of Maine,
that I will,
that
I will,
in all respects,
in all respects,
observe the provisions
observe the provisions
of the Charter
of the Charter
and the ordinances
and the ordinance
of the town of Lisbon,
of the town of Lisbon.
and will faithfully discharge
I will
Faithfully
faithfully
discharge
discharge
the duties of the office
duties of the office
of town council.
of town council.
Thank you. Can you be seated?
Also on the ballot were positions for the Budget Advisory Committee, and a at-large position, a District 1 and a District 2 position. There were three candidates. There were two candidates and one write-in, and Thomas Berry, John Wierzbicki, and Debbie Berry were elected to the Budget Committee. And if you would stand, Twyla will administer your oaths.
Yeah, you can stand right over here next to the microphone for our audience at home. Thank you. And raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, and state your name,
I, Debbie Ann Berry,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution
the Constitution
and will obey the laws
and will obey the laws
of the United States
of the United States
and of the state of Maine,
and of the state of Maine,
that I will,
that I will,
in all respects,
in all respects,
observe the provisions
observe the provisions
of the Charter
of the Charter
and ordinances
and ordinances
of the town of Lisbon,
of the town of Lisbon,
and will faithfully discharge
and will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of Budget Advisory Board.
of the Budget Advisory Board.
Thank you very much. You may be seated.
For the school committee, there were two positions for three-year terms. There were two candidates, Tracy Austin and George Karen. And not surprisingly, they were able to win. So if you would step forward, please.
Thank you. I, and state your name,
I, George Karen,
do solemnly swear
Do solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution
the Constitution
and will obey the laws
and obey the laws
of the United States
of the United States
and of the state of Maine,
and of the state of Maine,
and that I will,
and that I will,
in all respects,
in
in
all
all
respects,
respects,
observe the provisions
observe the provisions
of the Charter
of the Charter
and ordinances
and ordinances
of the town of Lisbon,
of the town of Lisbon,
and will faithfully discharge
and will faithfully discharge
the duties of office
the duties of office
of school committee.
of school committee.
Thank you very much.
Before we introduce the last one, as I look out, I see at least two members who I had the pleasure of serving with back when we were Board of Selectmen. And it's always nice when the old bulls come out and hopefully sit in the background and be quiet. At least that's what the chairman used to tell me to do when I would reappear at meetings. But would the former council and selectmen members please rise so we can recognize you? It was a hotly contested race for Water Commission, and Bill Bauer, of course, went out and outspent his opponents 17, 18 to 1 or something like that, and managed to eke out a he ran unopposed, that's right. Bill Bauer elected 3-year term on the Water Commission.
Yeah, apparently.
I state your name.
I, William Bauer,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution
the Constitution
and will obey the laws
and will obey the laws
of the United States
of the United States
and of the state of Maine,
and of the state of Maine,
that I will,
that I will,
in all respects,
in all respect,
observe the provisions
observe the provisions
of the Charter
of the Charter
and ordinances
and ordinances
of the town of Lisbon,
of the town of Lisbon,
and will faithfully discharge
and will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of Water Commissioner.
of Water Commissioner.
Thank you very much.
Bill and I have served on some committees together, and I still owe him several shots from that, so you're not off the hook yet, so. But we're working on it. Next up is the election of the chairman of the town council. And at this point, I will ask for nominations, or, yeah, Mr. Bowie.
I would nominate Fern LaRochelle.
I'll second that. Do I have to do
Are
that?
there further nominations? Mr. Cody.
I would nominate Mark Lunt.
I'll second that.
Are there further nominations? With two candidates, I think we'll have a paper ballot. Twyla, if you would distribute the ballots, please. Probably don't have to tell you guys this and ladies this, but you're voting for one person only.
You did. I won't vote twice, I promise.
Your fingers weren't there.
But my finger wasn't there.
Yep. Go ahead and announce it.
7 ballots cast, and of the 7 ballots cast, Mark Lunt is elected the chairman of the council for the 2010-2011 term. At this point, we'll ask for nominations for vice chair. Are there any nominations? Mr. Cody.
Yes, I'd like to nominate Lori Pomelo for vice chair of the council.
I'll second that.
Are there further nominations? Again, are there further nominations? Hearing none, I'll declare the nominations closed. Ask for a show of hands. Those who are in favor of Lori Pomerleau as the vice chair of the council, please raise your hands. And I declare Lori Pomerleau elected. At this point, my task is done, except to announce that you are going to take a short recess for some pictures and a little socializing. Give Twyla an opportunity, I guess, to change some nameplates. I wish you all the very best of luck. This is my town as well as yours. We all have the best interests of that town at heart, and I look forward to a very good year from all of you. Thank you, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Michael.
Time for pictures. The council will need to
Meeting to order, and why don't we rise and say a pledge of allegiance to the flag? Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Twyla, the first item.
Is under public hearings, a special entertainment permit for the Slovak Catholic Association.
Wait, I think first we need to do a reading of meeting rules. Am I correct on that?
If you'd like, or you can
Or
waive
we-
that,
okay.
whichever you prefer.
Okay, we can wait on that.
Okay.
Unless anyone has any disputes on the old meeting rules.
Okay.
All right, so the first item.
Is the special entertainment permit for the Slovak Catholic Association.
Okay, I'll open the public hearing for that. Any comments from the public? Okay, seeing none, I will close that public hearing. The next item, Twyla.
Is under public hearings for the itinerant vendor permit, Lisbon High School hockey team.
Okay, I'll open the public hearing on that. Any comments from the public? Seeing none, I will close that public hearing.
Okay.
Next item, Twyla.
Is under consent agenda. It's Order 2010-190C to approve a special entertainment permit for the Slovak Catholic Association and itinerant vendor permit for the Lisbon High School hockey team, the minutes of October the 19th, 2010, and the minutes of November the 3rd, 2010.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Take a vote. We need a roll call vote on that.
No?
No.
Who seconded it?
Fern?
Vern? Okay, thank you.
Okay. How do we work this? This is my first time. I need to go through the
favor?
steps here.
Just mention,
Okay.
all those in favor?
All those in favor?
All those opposed?
I'm sorry, I'm in favor.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Motion passed?
Order passed,
Passed?
7-0.
Okay. All right. Next item, Twyla.
Is under council orders, resolutions, and ordinances, Order 2010-191, to set the council working rules.
Okay, do I have a motion on that?
So moved.
I'll second it for discussion.
Okay, any discussion?
I would. One of the things I think we need to look for is the way these are written out, our meetings are starting at 7 o'clock. Council rules, I know that there's other areas that's been moved and changed and not really in place. Is it, since we're starting tonight at 7, is it going to be moved to 7, or are we going to continue at 6:30? To me, it just,
How does council feel about that? Would we prefer to stay at 6:30, or would we prefer to move back to 7? I know there's been some issues with the public about 6:30. You don't have any feelings on this issue?
I have no preference.
You don't have any preference, Mike? Anyone else?
I would prefer 7 o'clock.
Okay. Anyone else? Nope. Okay, well, seeing as we only moved to 6:30 on the idea that everyone was agreeable with it, if there's an objection, and I know some people in the audience have had problems with it, I'd suggest we move back to 7 then. So I guess we'd stay with it as it is.
So you have a motion on the floor, Chairman, to adopt the council working rules as they are?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
just want to
Sure.
Chair. The other thing that I guess that's been in question that was changed by the former chair that I'm not sure if we want to keep continuing or not. I guess it's the area for discussion is the idea of our packets. As a council, do we feel that we need the packets delivered, or do we feel we can take the responsibility to pick them up on Friday?
How
I
does
guess
it,
that'd be a question.
how does the council feel about that? Do people prefer getting the packets delivered to your homes, or do you prefer to just pick it up?
I think we can pick our packets up personally.
I do too.
I can pick mine up on Fridays.
I have no problem with that. I would just say that I would expect all of council to pick up their packets. I mean, while I was chairman, there was a number of times when packets were not picked up by a number of the councilors until Tuesday's meeting, even Monday night or as late as Tuesday's meeting. So it's very difficult to come prepared to represent your citizens that voted you in if you're not picking your packets up on Friday night or Saturday morning.
Okay, and yeah, I think that certainly makes sense. And one thing I want to make sure is that all councilors know they have their access codes to get in the building on the weekend, because sometimes it's very hard to get in here before closing time on Friday, if you're working at a job or classes or whatever. So everyone needs to know their access code to get in here, and if you don't, see Steve and find out about your correct passcode to get in. That we can pop by on Saturday.
One thing that I do want to bring up is that the agendas would change sometimes as late as Monday night for quite a spell. And because of that was probably the reason the packages were not picked up. And if the packages are definitely gonna be in our mailboxes on Fridays, then we'll be probably more apt to pick them up.
Yeah, I certainly agree with you, Roger. I think only in the case of an emergency should we have a change after it's gone out on Friday.
Another thing that I'd like to bring up to the council, the minutes being typed verbatim as they are. When we have the ability to go online and watch them through the plaza, why, I think this is wasteful. I think this takes a lot of time from from Twyla, and I think that this is something that could be generalized and would be sufficient for what we're doing at this time.
How does council feel about that?
I totally agree. I suggested it before, but there was a certain group of people that wanted them verbatim. And I tried for Twyla for a long time that they didn't have to be. There was a certain group that felt that every word needed to be printed, so that's why it was not done.
Okay.
In the future, are we gonna be revisiting the fact, this might be put online as far as the videos? I know we talked about it,
We're working on that.
to have it on the town website so that people can just go in and,
I think there's an issue of timeliness too, in terms of if it takes Twyla too long to get these done in this format now. So we're reviewing minutes from 2 months ago, and I don't remember what happened 2 months ago. So yeah, I think it would make sense if we could go to a simpler format. Anyone else feel the same way?
I do.
I think it's fine.
Okay, makes sense to me. What do we need for a motion on that?
Actually, I think we.
Do I need a motion to do that, or is
I'll,
that actually?
I'll make the motion that we eliminate the minutes verbatim to a more generalized minutes.
I'd like to have just a point of order here. We already have one motion on the
Okay.
floor to discuss the rules.
Okay.
I think we need to carry things out one at a time. If council would like to bring up the fact that they want to make additional changes that are not necessarily referenced in these rules, that should be done separately.
All right, we'll deal with that after this. So, any further discussion on this issue? Just related to the working rules? Okay, well, I'll take a vote then on whether we pass the motion as seconded.
We,
All in favor? All opposed? Sorry, I'm.
So order passed, 7-0.
Order passed 7-0.
amended to the, do we have to amend it now?
No,
to-
now you make a separate motion, Roger. if
I'd
you
like
wanna
to
do
make
it.
the motion to change the minutes to be more generalized than verbatim, to simplify it for the town clerk and the other sources that we have to gather this information, I think would be adequate.
Second?
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor? All
Order-
opposed?
Order passed, 7-0.
All right, before the next item, I wanted to address the motion from Counselor Cody for the, no, wait, we already did that, sorry. Okay. Okay, next item, Twyla?
Is Order 2010-192, the recall petition?
Okay, and you explain us what's the deal with the recall petition?
Yes, I'd be glad to. On November the 23rd, I certified that I received 6 petitions that were submitted on November the 5th, and that 304 signatures were necessary and required in order for that petition to be considered valid. And I signed a clerk's certificate stating that the petitions were determined to be sufficient. At this point, the copies were forwarded to the council for them to review.
Okay, so do we need to take action on that, or is that the next item of special election date?
Correct.
Okay. So we don't actually any action we need to take on that item? Beyond the special election date, that's the next item, am I correct?
You can open it up for discussion.
Right, okay, sorry, yes. All right, any discussion on that issue? Ron?
The, there's been some people that's been talking to me and asking me, and as you know with the emails that I've actually asked Steve to just check in to see what we can do. It's been asked that before the vote, since the town's going to spend thousands of dollars on this vote, that we have a opportunity to inform the citizens of Lisbon of the facts and the information that the petition is about to get people more informed. And I would like to bring it to the council if what we would need to do to actually offer a public hearing. I know the Ethics Board was actually approached on it to give us their opinion, and that's one of the recommendations that were kind of came from that one mechanism we can use to inform the citizens of Lisbon about the vote would be to actually hold a public hearing to allow them to get information on it. It seems like it would only be fair at this point. And I was just curious to see what the other councilors had for opinions on it.
Any thoughts on that?
The only thing that I would bring forth is that this was a petition that was done by the people, by the citizens of the town. It wasn't done by the council. It wasn't done by any group other than the council. It was done by the citizens. And that is a right that the citizens have per charter. If they want to do something of this nature, they can do it. And I don't think we have any input into that other than to set a date for an election. This is up to this is something the people are bringing forward. It's not anything that we have a control of.
May I also, I know with rules.
Sure.
And I totally agree that the vote, the process was done correctly. The signatures are there, and there is a right for it to go to vote, which it is. And I think that's just going by charter. I don't think there's anything against that. I mean, I guess if you feel that the idea of a public hearing coming from the council wouldn't be right, if the citizens of Lisbon were asked for a public hearing, would that be different than the council? Or, I'm not sure exactly. It would be nice to have the information promoted properly. Speaking to some of the people even that were, part of actually writing the charter and some of the original information, one of the things that they're kind of discouraged that the charter actually allows for the citizens of Lisbon to bring forth complaints and concerns and actually have someone removed. But unfortunately, there was nothing ever written into the charter for the person to be able to for the people of Lisbon to be educated on that and to get the information. Unfortunately, it's really easy to point fingers and make points. It would just be nice if we're going to spend the money, which we are going to spend a lot of money in this town to bring this to the vote, that people actually are aware what the vote is for. And unfortunately, if you ask 3 or 4 different people, they all have 3 or 4 different ideas because they had different ideas when they actually were promoted to them. So it would be nice for the people of Lisbon to have an opportunity to, if nothing else, would cost nothing. The election's going to cost something. A public hearing wouldn't cost anything, to actually allow them to get the information so they can actually make an educated vote, not just a vote on what they heard down the street.
Well, Fern, I do want to say one thing, though, is we're going to have an election whether or not we have a public hearing.
Totally
Because,
agree.
that expense is there. That's,
Yeah,
they've
totally
already
agree.
filed it. So we wouldn't avoid that no matter what we did.
And I weren't disputing that.
Right, okay,
Yeah.
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 Can I say something?
Sure.
Twyla, do we have enough time to have a public hearing between when the
Yes.
vote's gonna be? Okay.
Yeah,
That's all I
certainly do.
When does this vote need to be by?
Within 30 days,
From the time you certify
December
it?
7th, from the time that the
from-
council receives it,
Okay.
I was told. So you have 30 days, which would be until January 7th approximately.
All right.
don't have
Any
it.
other opinions on that? Okay. I see a couple people in the audience. I don't have to recognize you, but I will since I'm going to open up the floor here for a moment. Dot, what do you have to say?
Over 400 people signed the petition.
Could you go step up to the microphone, Dot?
Do you have a calendar for? I know, that goes to just December.
My name is Dorothy Fitzgerald. I'm a resident of the town of Lisbon, and Lisbon Falls per se. I headed up this petition, and all of the more than 400 people that signed the petition were informed and knew exactly what the petition entailed, what it said. They had the opportunity to read it, and there were other little flyers that were presented to the people, so they knew exactly what they were signing and why. So a lot of people were informed. There were a lot of people that also came forward that wanted to sign the petition, but the petition had already been turned in. So there was a lot of information out in the media and everything, and if people weren't informed, it wasn't because we did not try. And I really feel that if you want a hearing, or the only trouble with a hearing is that a lot of people cannot speak at a hearing, so it needs to be an informational meeting or whatever, rather than a public hearing. People need to be able to speak and ask questions and get answers.
All right. All right, thank you, Dot. Larry?
I'm Larry Fillmore from Lisbon. On all the other elections that we hold in this town, we don't necessarily hold a public hearing. The people don't know, you know, they do it by mouth, they do it by whatever means to find out what the candidates are all about. The people who signed the petition were told what they were signing prior to that. Okay, to hold another or hold a public hearing when it's up to the town people to vote, it's their vote. You're delaying the process needlessly. These people signed a petition knowing what they were signing, or if they didn't know what they were signing, they signed it anyways. So if you're going to hold an election or a special election or whatever, they're going to be there because they signed a petition. So this is just a delaying tactic to delay the inevitable. Let's just hold the election and move on. Stop delaying it and playing games.
Chair, would you define the idea that there's no delay, that the time frame remains the same
Right, the
regardless?
time frame would be the same. It would be in between if we did.
You're gonna get 400 and something people in this room. We couldn't do that last time when we did the tax thing. So where are you gonna hold it? You wanna tell me where you're gonna hold it? The last time I was told, you had to have a special room or provisions to do that, and that took scheduling. And scheduling is not gonna get you any closer to this.
I would think that would be up to the chair, since it would be his duty.
Do what you want, Joe.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I know this is outside the rules, but if I could ask the town clerk, can you give me an approximate estimation of how many people voted this last November 2nd?
3,922.
There are 4,000 voters in this town.
Only in District 2 would you have this vote for, though.
Okay, how many in District 2 do
A
you
little over
think?
2,000.
2,000 people. I don't think 400 people need to demand to bypass an informational meeting for 2,000 voters. I want a public hearing. I want whatever information, because I want to tell you, I've lived in this town 11 years. I don't have one clue what this recall is about. Not one. Now, I'm not disputing the fact that the signatures were signed and everything. Let's have the vote, no question. Let's have the information first.
Go ahead.
Good evening, Richard Main, Libby Street. I think it would be unfortunate to not have a public hearing on not an election, but a vote on a recall petition that is not the same as an election. That is a different action by the residents of District 2. Now, I've read the petition. I was not one of the signatories. We were told tonight that there were over 400 signatures on it. The ones I saw, there were 2 or 3 by the same person, and there were only 342 which were actually certified. There was one special charge in there, and I assume that all the charges are verifiable. there was one particular charge in there of conflict of interest and improper influence on funding, which is, in my estimation, and according to the law, a criminal offense. And if that is so, I'm wondering why the petitioners haven't been running to the Attorney General's office and the District Attorney's office with these charges. The charge has been made. There has been no specifics regarding it, nor have there been specifics regarding, I know of one, which is the only one, but the others I don't know about. And I would like to see the proof before I vote of what those charges actually revolve around. If it's, I dislike this person, fine. I don't agree with this person, fine. But there are specific charges in there, and there should be information be given to the residents of this community who are going to be making those decisions. Not just the 342 who were certified, but all of the residents of District 2. Thank you very much.
Dot, go ahead.
I just wanted to reiterate what Twyla said. This is only District 2. The District 2 people that lived in District 2, the Lisbon Falls area of town, where this person, counselor, is residing and was elected from. And those are the only people that were eligible to sign the petition, and this is the only section of town that will be voting on this. And there have been many requests for a recall, and so we got up a committee, we got the signatures, we submitted them, they've all been verified, and I feel that we should move forward and have an election. And if the people speak and say that he should not be recalled, this person, council should not be recalled, so be it. But let's move forward.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, good evening.
Your name?
My name is Renee Bernier. I am the owner of 72 Lisbon Road in Lisbon. Actually, before I go there, I just want to welcome the new members to public service. I'm between my meeting tonight, too, and hopefully I can get this done so I can get back to my Lewiston City Council meeting, and the mayor, and on behalf of the city of Lewiston, welcome to public service. And I also want it to be known, and for the record, that Mike Bowie happens to be my brother-in-law. And one thing I've learned in public service, and my father being in politics, that we don't talk politics. And I have not had any discussion with Michael Bowie in reference to this, so I want to bring some stuff to your attention. Like I told you, I am the owner of 72 Lisbon Road. And the petition that happened to be circulated and how I got involved with this is the petitions. Do you have those in front of you, the signed petitions?
Yes, they do.
Can you please, could you please state that the 3 reasons on that petition, what people signed?
Are you meaning like A, B, C, and D?
Yes,
Those are the reasons we're calling for it?
yes.
Would you like me to read that for you?
Sure.
Okay. A, denying any counselor the right to place an item on the agenda, Charter Section 2.04. B, not consulting with all the council when dealing with the town manager, Charter Section 2.04. C, improper influence and/or conflict of interest regarding town funds, Chapter 12.
Could you stop right there? Let me tell you, I happened to be at 72 Lisbon Road when this petition was being circulated. Is there a petition that is signed and notarized by a Michelle Tremaine, and is there a person that circulated it by the name of Sandy Kent or Sandra Kent?
That's correct. Petition number 2.
Well, folks, let me tell you something. I happened to have people stop in at 72 Lisbon Road on the day that that was being circulated at your town dump. I got in my vehicle and I went to the town dump and saw this woman, and she asked me to sign the petition. And by the way, I also have it was all recorded, and I really apologize, but I was in a hurry and I went to my city council meeting in in Lewiston, and I left my paperwork on my desk, which I will give tomorrow to the town manager. I had it translated from that tape, so you'll have it in a document what the wording, word for word was, that the conversation that I had with this woman. She asked me to sign the petition to do a recall on Michael Bowie, and I asked her the reasons, and she said to lower the taxes, and she also made a comment that there was inappropriation of funds for a family member that owned a business on 196. And it went on. And like I said, I have it documented. I will give it to the town manager tomorrow so he can give it to your city attorney. You know, I've been in public service for a long time, and I've dealt with a lot of citizens in my community. And I'm going to tell you that when economic times get tough, people have a tendency of getting upset, which you can't blame them. And I've been watching some of the meetings with Lisbon. I don't know what happened actually with the tax bills here, but I know that there was an issue. But most of people, when you ask them to sign a petition and you come out with those words to lower your tax, anybody's going to sign anything. But when we have people that are circulating a petition that are telling people that an individual did an inappropriation of funds, town funds, to fund a relative that owns a business on 196 is totally inappropriate. And I've had some conversations with the state, a petition, and I'm surprised that the city attorney would have taken a look at this petition and allowed a petition to go out into the community that is not factual. And for the people that circulated this petition, I've heard from other people that the same thing was mentioned from the other circulators, but I can't confirm that. I can only confirm the one that occurred at your town dump because I was there and recorded it, and you're going to ask me, oh, you must have showed up with a recorder, why? Well, the reason why I happen to have recorded it, because I happen to be a licensed private investigator, and I have it in my vehicle. So when she started talking, it was on my dash, and I hit it. So that's the only reason. It wasn't a setup that I went to your town dump to record this woman. The next thing I want to bring up, and I'm sure all of you, and I'm not so sure, maybe the elected officials, know with the FOAA is, which is the Right to Know and the Main Freedom of Access Act. But what I am doing is I am putting you on notice that I expect from counselors, from their personal computers, any correspondence that had anything to do with the citizens, your citizen group that you have that's been creating turmoil here in your community, any emails that have gone to them. And I apologize that I didn't know that Mr. Crafts wasn't no longer here, but he was an elected official. And I'm going to expect that from him also. He does sit in the Maine legislature, and I'm going to request from the Maine legislature any kind of correspondence that he has on his computer. And I'm saddened. I'm saddened to think that I, as a business owner, and actually I don't own the business, my son owns the business and I own the real estate, that we're investing here in this town of Lisbon to have this sort of activity go on. And that I have to stand here before all of you to tell you what occurred for a petition that did not have factual information on it. And as a city council, like I'm telling you, you have the right, even though you have those signatures, I'm asking you not to deem that to go to the voters, because the information that is on that petition is not factual. And each and every one of you had a right as a city councilor on any of those issues to ask for a full-fledged investigation on all three of those issues. And as I stand before you today, if you need my signature to give you permission to go through the entire records of the town of Lisbon to see if there was any loans that were given to me for this project, please feel free to ask me and I'll give it to you. The only thing that my name should be on in the town of Lisbon is me paying my water bill, me paying the sewer bill, and by the way, the sewer bill is recent because I had to hook up to the sewer, and my tax bill. So those would be the three things that you would actually find in the records here in the town of Lisbon.
All right, thank you. I do want to say, though, that this is not a judicial action. This is a political action, and that's a recall is a political action, and the charter doesn't specify any specific reasons. It merely specifies there have to be reasons given, not that those reasons have to be certified by anyone as good or worthy.
But how would the city council allow this to go to a vote when the people weren't even told? I mean, anybody's going to sign anything.
We don't have discretion on it. The charter requires us to. It doesn't authorize us to. We're required to if it's been certified. Otherwise, we are in violation of state law.
I'm going to
All
be.
right, I'm cutting you off. That's it.
I'm giving
All right,
this to
go.
the.
No, you can
No,
give
excuse
whatever
me,
you
I
want.
have the floor. I'm
Don't
going to
have
be
the
giving
floor.
this to the city clerk so I can
You're
have.
out of order.
No, I'm not out of order.
You are out of order. I'm ruling you out of order. Made your point.
May I say something, Mark?
Yes, Roger.
Many evenings I've sat here and we've had discussion about certain issues, and the council and Ms. Mason especially has said that there are provisions in the charter. If you don't like something as a people, then you have the proper channels to change it or to try to do something about it. The citizens of this town chose to do something about it, and now we're going to sit here and critique everything they've done. It isn't up to us to do so. The people have done this. The people are going to vote. Put it to a vote. If the people come out and vote a certain way, whatever the outcome may be, so be it. But it's going to be the people. I don't know why we're trying to make this a legal issue when it is not a legal issue. This is a political issue driven by the citizens of this community. And if I was a citizen in this community that had started this, this would outrage me to think that somebody is trying to make a mockery of a system that we have in place for the people to use. Who do we think we are as a council or as a people to come up here and critique something that the people of this community are asking for? This is what this charter was designed for, is to give the people their say. So let's do it and stop the hogwash. I am getting nauseated by listening to this garbage. These people have spoken. They have signed petitions. Now let's let it just go to a vote and let the people have their way.
All right, thank you, Roger. Go ahead.
Good evening, John Wiersbicky. I live in Lisbon on Cotton Road. I would just like to lend my support to the thought of having some type of public hearing about it, because very simply, there's always two sides to a story. The people that presented this position, that is their side. There's the other side. If you have a public hearing, maybe we can get both sides out there so the people that are voting make sure they understand both sides of it rather than just one side. Thank you.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Charlie.
Charles Smith from 18 Free Street. I'd just like to know if any of this has actually been proven.
Again, it's not a judicial matter. We're not investigating this. This isn't, any kind of thing like that. It's purely some petitioners brought a, petition before us, and we have to schedule a vote on it. We don't have any other function beyond that.
So basically, someone could take a petition out that the sky is falling, and the citizens would have to vote on it.
Right. People could.
And that's basically what we're doing here.
Yes. People could recall me based on they don't like the color of my shirt. That's how it is. It's political.
I will apologize in one way. I was a member of the Charter Commission, and this is one area we should have put more detail in. And I've seen this twice now, once with Mrs. Wells earlier, and there was no basis to that. And until I hear something factual, I have the same assumption with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, ma'am.
Hi, Lisa Ward, and I live in Lisbon Falls. I have to say that I see validity to both arguments. I, on Election Day, sat in the MTM Center chatting with Dot, sitting with Ms. Mason's son, waiting for the election results, and turned to the petition. I personally did not sign the petition. I looked at it, and I didn't agree with it. But when I talked with Dot, she was clearly very upset, clearly very full of conviction about how she feels about this issue, and I respect that. I also know that I have personally spoken with several people who signed the petition, thinking that it was something other than what it was. Because like a lot of voters, they signed it so that something could go to election, not realizing that it wasn't an actual election, but a recall. And I personally know of 2 people, there may be more, who came to the town office and asked to have their names removed from the petition and filled out the paperwork and did so. I wonder how many other people would do that if they knew this was going on. I wonder how many other people out there don't fully understand what was on that petition, and I'm fairly certain it's a large number. I was at the MTM Center the day that the petition was on a table for people to sign. It was not a friendly place to be that day. There was a lot going on, and there were a lot of angry people. I understand that people become angry when they have conviction on their side, and I'm not saying you were angry, Dot. But I also understand that things are said which are not true, or which are only partly true, or which are opinions and stated as if they're a fact. I personally would like to see my neighbors and my fellow voters find out the actual meat of the matter. What are we really doing? Are we recalling Mr. Bowie because he took money or made it possible for a family member to take money? If that's true, as has been said earlier, that's against the law. Why are we recalling him? He should not be recalled. This should go to court. What I really would like to see is every one of those 4 points addressed, and I would like to see both sides of the story. I suspect that the side that has the petition signed does not have the strength of fact that myself and my neighbors would like to see. So since a hearing would not cost that much, and I understand the vote itself is going to cost a couple of $1,000s at least. That's tax money that, I mean, here we are trying to lower our taxes and we're going to spend $2,000 on a vote. I mean, that's ridiculous. Let's have the hearing. If we're going to spend $2,000 that we're already committed to spending, can we please spend it well? And can we please spend it as an informed public, not a public who has been swayed by opinion and opinion alone? Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Dot.
I'll make it brief. I've been following town council meetings for some time now. I've also been to just about every town meeting almost since I've moved to Lisbon Falls in 1958. Denying any councilor the right to place an item on the agenda. I have been at many, many, many town council meetings when a member of the town council has asked the chairperson to place an item on the agenda for the town, at a town council meeting, And this was denied time after time after time after time. This is not right. If a counselor wants something placed on the agenda, it should be placed on the agenda. Speaking with a former council member a few months ago, that person said, "Well, Dot, it finally got put on the agenda, didn't it?" Does that make it right to finally put it on the agenda? No, it does not make it right. Not consulting with all of the councilors when dealing with the town manager. How many times has one or two council members not been informed by the town manager, by the chairperson of the town council? All council members should be informed, and they have not been. I rest my case.
Thank you, Dot. All right, do I have a motion on this issue?
Make a motion that we actually allow time for a public hearing to, there are citizens who want to vote, there's also citizens that are asking us for a public hearing, so.
Public meeting rather than public hearing where people can talk?
Public hearing, I believe, is anybody can speak.
That's true.
Yeah, I believe.
Yes, correct.
It wouldn't be a workshop, it'd be a public hearing is what I'd be requesting, is what the participants are requesting.
I'll second that, but I'd like to speak to that point if I could, please. I came here tonight and I was going to say, go ahead, just let the vote happen. And the people have done what I have often voiced that they are allowed to do, let the vote happen. But when Ms. Bernier came up and explained what happened to her, and I have no reason to believe that she's lying, she has it tape recorded, we can get a transcript of that, correct? And then I went back and I looked, and I'd done this when I received my packet on Friday, but I went back and I went to all the validation papers that Twyla gives for each signature, each petition. I have one here. There are 2 invalid signatures on one. There are 13 invalid signatures on the other, invalid district. 3 invalid on another, and 6 invalid on another. We've gone tonight and we've explained that this is District 2 only. Obviously, when somebody was taking these signatures, they didn't know that it was for District 2 only. They allowed District 1 people, or who knows, to sign these petitions. I have a problem with that. If you want to start saying we need to just go on what's here on this petition, that's one thing, but to have people knowingly sign a petition that aren't even able to vote in that district is wrong. So, in my opinion, that should have been taken care of a little better. And my opinion is we need to allow a public hearing. It's not going to delay the vote that can happen as late as January 7th. And allow the people to come forward. If there are people that the last lady explained that didn't want to be on this petition once they found out what they were told or others were told, I think those people need to have the chance to voice that. And I do have one person's permission to be removed in my packet. I don't know if there was another or not, but is that all we got? One person that wanted to have their name removed from the petition?
I signed the certificate on 11/23, and then 2 other people came in after and had requested their names be withdrawn. So at this point, there's 343 still valid signatures.
Okay, so there are 3 people that requested
There
their
are
name.
3 that withdrew so far, yeah.
Okay, so obviously there was a problem, either in explaining the process, getting the signature, whatever was done. So my opinion is we have the public hearing, we allow people to come out, we allow people to voice their opinion or what they were told or bring forth a transcript or whatever. It's not going to delay the vote, and it's not taking anything away from the process. So my opinion is to second it and give them the public hearing.
This was, petition was gone over by the town clerk and reviewed by the town attorney. Why are we now saying that they didn't do their job?
I'm saying the people that passed the
It was
petitions.
inspected by the town clerk and the town attorney afterwards.
Right, and they're the ones who found the discrepancies of
They
13.
must have agreed
Okay.
with it because they signed it.
Don't argue with each other. Gina, I do want to speak to one point on that, that when, when we all go and collect signatures just to run for this, we all, I know I had to stand around at the dump and get signatures from people, and I know I got several people in there that were just, from the wrong district because, it's an invisible line drawn through the town, and people don't always know exactly which side they live on, whether it's
But
District
13
one.
invalid ones on one petition, that's a lot
Yeah,
of,
but
that's a lot of.
I just don't think that's really an irregularity. How common is it for, Twyla, for there to be wrong signatures on, say, just regular papers for running for office?
It happens quite a bit, unfortunately.
Which it
Yeah.
does, but we're picking and choosing here, and I think that's an important point, that people need to know where they live, number one, and not to go any further, but I think that's a problem.
The person circulating the petition should
Yep.
pay attention to those signatures.
But I guess if people don't know which district they're in, they might not know what they're voting for. And obviously, there are some folks out there that didn't really know what they were signing the petition for, so.
Go ahead, Roger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, if I may. I wanted to address the issue of what the clerk and I look at based on what the charter says. It uses the word sufficiency. It does not define what sufficiency is. There is no guidance on what kind of reasons, what type of reasons. You're absolutely right. If they don't like the color of your shirt, they can go out with a petition that says, we don't like the color of Mark Lunt's shirt. We don't have any basis, when we review these petitions, to suggest that they may be insufficient because the term is not defined. We review the petitions for technical compliance. Does it have the information that it is supposed to have? Has it been notarized properly? That's what we do. We have no authority under the charter to do anything else. There is a provision in here that allows for a court review. Presumably, that court review would test the sufficiency of the petition. But we, as staff, do not have any basis upon which to do that. I want that council to be clear about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. All right, and, I hear what everyone's saying. I just feel that it's a political matter between the citizens and the counselor that they're recalling, and that if we start opening up this up to a public hearing, it's going to just turn into a witch hunt where we're going to argue about this for 6 hours, and, no one's going to change their opinion because people are still going to be mad or not mad, depending on how they feel. But if council wants to hold this, we can. So,
Maybe.
go ahead, Fern.
The thing that I would actually just bring forth is, if there was 400 people voting, and those 400 people were explained the day of what that petition were, that really leaves the other 1,600 people out of the loop that you expect to come in and vote and not have any information. And really, the only way for those people to be informed is the idea of giving them some information. Right now, they have none. So you actually have 1,600 people that are going to go vote that really, unless they hang out down street and get an opinion, are not going to have any knowledge even what they're voting on. So I fully agree the 400 people that are going, or 343 or whatever it would be, are somewhat informed because they actually had spoke to someone about it. But you're actually really leaving 1,600 people out of the loop without giving them any resource to allow them to get information. The citizens ask for the recall. There's also citizens asking for information. So, I mean, I don't know. Roger always says, people ask for it, citizens ask for it, we should give it to them. So, again, that's kind of where we're at.
Roger?
If I were to be recalled, and I may in the future, I don't know, I would be humbled that people want to recall me. I must have done something they're not approving of. And the people have spoken. What we have lost track of here is that this is the people talking, speaking to what they want. It doesn't matter what the council wants at this point. It's the people. And if the people want somebody removed, and the people come out on the day that we have the vote, and they vote that, if they may not vote it the way that we think it will. Probably Mike will be here for the next 50 years. The bottom line is, it's going to be the people that should determine that. And to stop the people from having their, I think, is detrimental to the whole system of government. Why are we trying to slap the citizen of this town down and talk down to them like they don't know what they want? That they don't know what they're signing? I've heard this so many times at elections. Oh, that candidate, we have a lot of people voting, but these people don't know what. How do we know what these people don't know what they're doing? They probably know very well what they're doing. They have opinions, and they vote it. Let the people have their vote. Let the cards fall where they may fall, and move on.
Thank you,
I
Roger.
think Mike is changing himself. I would think he would say, bring it on. I feel that I'm good enough to keep my position, and I think the people will see that. So be it. But to do what we're doing here, I think it's very, very bad to do this to our people.
Thank you, Roger.
No, that's all right, go ahead.
Go ahead, sir.
David Bowie, Upland Road. First of all, a disclaimer, Mike and I are related. If you go back 7 generations, you'll find we have a common ancestor there. His grandfather and I are 5th cousins.
Twice removed.
I'd like to speak as a member of the Charter Commission that put together the charter. We did away with the town meeting system because of the way that things didn't get very well deliberated on the floor, and replaced it with a system of the town council so that people could make votes and would be very well informed on every decision made. However, we made provisions so that the townspeople could take action when they felt it was necessary. One of those provisions is the recall process. What it basically does is set it up so that it's similar to a court case in that the people become the judge and the jury to decide that issue. But comparing that again to a court case, in any court case, the accusations have to be clear, and they don't even get to court unless they're very clear. The evidence has to be brought forward and it has to be verified. In this case, the voters have the responsibility to act on the evidence that they have. The problem right now is they don't have that evidence. So I think the hearing process, or any public forum that gets a chance for people to hear the information that's out there, get the facts, gives the voters the chance to form their opinions based on facts, not on hearsay. So that's why I would strongly favor there be some form of public forum. Now, in a lot of communities, it's the League of Women Voters or the local VFW or whatever that sponsor that. It doesn't have to be the town council. And if the town council is really uncomfortable and if it's putting you at odds, then I would suggest don't do it as a council. That's an opportunity that you have to serve the town by providing good information, and doing so in the first test of this type of action by the town. We have not exercised the charter in this regard in any way so far. So it's important that we do it right. A hearing would give the people the opportunity to act responsibly, and I would charge the people of Lisbon to do that. That's in particular of that ward. There is one technicality I'd like to ask about from Twyla. The charter calls for an election to be held within 30 days of verification of the petition.
From the date
Is-
it's turned over to the council.
Is the-
It's a
are-
combination of the clerk and the council's action that it's been sufficient.
Is that date today?
That's today, so 30 days from today.
Okay, that's what I wanted to verify, because I thought I'd heard an earlier date that you had verified the petition was
I
valid.
did. I sent out a clerk's certificate on 11/23, but the council doesn't meet until today. So this is the first time the council's met since that certificate was signed.
Okay, and Roger's in agreement with that?
And it
Okay.
provides that it go from her to the council, so that time.
Okay, just want to make sure that technicality wasn't overlooked. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, ma'am.
Tracy Austin, Webster Road, Lisbon. As a fellow elected official, this scares the bejesus out of me because without having valid, substantiated points to a recall, just because someone might not like my scarf tonight, I could be put in this predicament in a few weeks. That makes me nervous, and I ask that the town council, in a future date, assign or discuss or whatever some stipulations with the ethics committee possibly in how things are brought to petition for validation and substance, because that does scare me that as all of you, put so much time and effort into trying to do what's right for the town, that something so simple as you had stated, color of your shirt, could possibly, I think that is a ridiculous thing, but something so minor could possibly offend somebody and find themselves in this position. So I do call upon the town council to, at some point in the near future, to address this issue with a little more of a fine-tooth comb.
Thank you. And I think we would have to address that in the form of an amendment to the charter, since we couldn't override the charter ourselves. Go ahead.
Last time I get up, I didn't give my name and number. Rick Graham, and I live on Webster Road. Councilor Cody makes some good points, but I would like to point out that with the exception of the lady who owns the property that's in question in one of these petitions, I haven't heard anybody call for not having this recall vote. What we're asking for is the information connected to it. Not one person, with the exception of her, and understandably so, has asked to not have this vote or has asked to delay the vote. Those of us that have spoke on this side of it, are saying we've got 30 days before that special election has to happen. Prior to that, could we know what the vote's going to be about? That's all. Nobody wants to not go forward with what the charter required. I say, you know what? If the process has been followed, we're required to. Just like you said, absolutely. Let's just have the information, that's all. Nobody's asking to not go forward with this.
Okay, so I have a motion on the floor for scheduling a public hearing with regard to the recall. All those in favor? Oh, yeah, was there a second?
Yeah, what, actually,
Yes,
Yes,
there was. I
Gina
thought it was
Mason
Gina. Yes,
seconded.
okay, so those in favor?
3, 4,
Okay, those opposed?
2, 3.
All right, well, I guess we will schedule a public hearing on that. And anyone have an opinion on what would be a good day, good time for scheduling that? Next week, maybe?
One question I would have, though, isn't this just a discussion for the people of the District 2? District 1 will have no input in it.
Right, that's correct. It's
That's what I thought.
District 2. But we can still allow people to speak if they have pertinent information. So,
Okay, order
7th now,
passed, let's
so-
see, order passed 4-3.
4-3, yep.
There will be a public hearing then.
Yep.
Last date you can hold the election would be January 7th.
Right,
With the holidays coming up, it's going to be a very difficult time to get it before that.
right.
If you want to schedule a public hearing, do you want to do it on a Tuesday or Wednesday night? I would suggest you do it next week or the
Do it on
early.
a Friday night.
What's better for people, Tuesday, Wednesday? You don't have any
Tuesdays
opinions?
preferably, because I have
Tuesday.
Tuesdays aside.
14th.
I think that makes sense. Okay. We'll schedule it for 7 o'clock next week on Tuesday, the 14th.
Where is it going to be held?
That's a question. Where would council prefer to hold this? Would the public hearing be here,
No, it
or
needs
do we
to
need more space?
Place, just so there's no complaining.
Yep. The high school, where would the,
Oh, don't we have to ask them to do
We have to
use
We
that
could
space?
Yeah.
You
use
could do
either
it
the
in-
community school,
Lisbon Community School, we might have a better chance of
Okay.
getting
they have the cafeteria
area
or the
versus the
gym.
gymnasiums, which will be pretty busy.
okay,
So we'll have Jody try to schedule it for the 14th at 7 o'clock at LCS. If it changes, I will let you all know. I want to schedule the
okay. You
election.
put that up on the website, too.
Yeah, we'll post it in the, on the sign on the website, try to run a legal ad or something.
Okay. And next item, Twyla?
Is order 2010-193 to set the special election date?
Okay, do I have a motion on that?
Might just recommend that you continue to use the Tuesdays.
Right.
That's particularly been the successful dates for
Okay.
us, so.
I think in terms of making sure that you have time to print up ballots and get ballots for any absentee people who want to get them, that we should go as far in the future as we can, so I'd
Is
say
Tuesday, January the 4th?
January the
is
4th
last
would make sense
date?
to me. Do I have a motion for the scheduling it on January 4th?
I'll make a motion that we schedule it Tuesday, January 4th, 2011.
Okay, all in favor?
Can I also recommend you have a schedule for a council meeting that night, that you
Okay.
move your council meeting to Wednesday the 5th,
That sounds agreeable.
so it's not a conflict.
Anyone else have any problems with that? Okay.
The vote
Motion.
was 6 in favor, but we didn't do opposed
Okay,
or
opposed.
abstained.
Any, all opposed? Any abstain?
Thank you very much.
Okay, do we need a vote to move the meeting date? Okay,
There is a couple of details.
all right.
We'd like you to discuss the polling hours. In the past, typically, for recall, we've used 1 o'clock to 7 o'clock, but there's no definite
Right.
date and time, no definite time here. You can discuss that. And we'd like you to appoint Sheila Gray. She's the warden in the other end of town.
Okay.
I think that shows impartiality as much as we can. I'd like you to set the voter registration hours from 8:30 to 4:30 the day before Election Day and during the polling hours on Election Day as typical.
Okay,
And absentees, I was told when I spoke with the ballot company that they should be here within 5 days of our proofing, making the final proof, so.
okay.
Polling hours are important.
So polling hours, you're suggested it was 1 to 7?
Or anything that you'd
Okay,
prefer.
does council
but
have any opinion on that? Or is 1 to 7 okay, or do you prefer it longer? or
We're gonna
what?
keep it as a common hours.
you
I
want
think we discussed that at
7
earlier.
a.m. to 8 p.m., is that what you,
Well, the
is that
thing
what
of
you
it
mean,
is
the
that
common
when you
hours?
start altering hours, polling hours, it leads people to believe that it is gonna be open to that time, and then if it isn't, they don't get a chance to vote. And I think any kind of poll, any kind of vote that we have, we should be consistent in the way that we vote, and consistent with our hours.
It makes sense to me. Yeah, okay. So, that was what your hours, you suggested, Roger, the standard hours of standard polling hours?
7 a.m. to 8 p.m. will be the polling hours,
All right.
okay?
Yep.
And the registrar hours are fine, right?
Mhm.
Okay. All right, that sounds good. We have some direction. We'll bring back a warrant for your
Okay.
next meeting to be signed.
All right.
Um,
Next item, Twyla?
Is under Order 2010-194, Board of Appeals resignation, Laura Henton.
You have one in your paperwork, individual from the appeals board that is resigning. Just have to accept the letter of resignation.
Motion to accept.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
How many openings do we have? That would this make?
Just one, this will make one, as far as I know. And we'll get it posted right away, so we get that filled.
Can I just request that everyone speak up so that we can be heard by the audience on television?
Thank you, Dot. Remember, you have to speak right close into the microphones. It doesn't always pick up very well. Okay,
Nope.
so you have a motion and it's seconded. All those in favor?
Order passed, 7-0. I want to apologize. I didn't know who was going to be the chairman of this meeting, but I want to let the chairman know at this point that we had a off-premise catering permit come in at the last moment, and you will not be able to meet before this event happens. So I'd like you to consider an off-premise catering permit for Da Vinci's Eatery. They would like to cater the party, Christmas party, next weekend. The event is on 12/17. So with your permission, we could make a motion to approve the off-premise catering permit. Did double check. They do have a current valid license for alcohol and for food sales in the city of Lewiston.
Okay, do I hear a motion for that?
So move.
Second?
I'll second it.
All right, motion is seconded. Any discussion? All right, seeing no discussion, I will take a vote on that. All in favor? All opposed?
Order passed, 7-0.
Okay, next item, Twyla?
Is under other business. Tax update, William Van Tynen.
Hey, Mr. Van Tynen, could you come to the podium?
Yes.
I have some extra copies of a memo and some material. If anybody wants to get one, they can. We're at the stage that the tax rate can be set.
For the last several weeks, we've been doing some reconciliation, trying to get everything checked and reconciled and as accurate as we can. And we've done that. We've come up with a evaluation of the town, and we're ready to set the tax rate. I would like that you all have a chance to understand the process, the amounts, the issues related to the setting of the tax rate and how we're going to proceed with it. One of the issues that is unusual in the situation that we find ourselves in right now is the due date for taxes, the interest date for taxes, and the interest rate for taxes. You send a tax bill out for your fiscal year, and there's a due date and an interest rate for the fall payment of taxes, and a due date and an interest date for the spring payment of taxes. For this year, when you finished your budget process, I believe, as part of your budget process, you set the first half of the tax bill with a due date of 9/15/2010 and an interest date of 9/16/2010. And the second half of the tax bill had a due date of March 15th, 2011, and an interest date of 3/16/2011. And the interest rate was set at 7%. It's also my understanding that over the last few months, I don't know exactly what meeting you did it at, you made the decision to waive interest until the end of the year. So there is no interest until after the end of the fiscal year, 6/30/2011. The interest rate, it would be my understanding, is still 7%. And I need to, in the commitment papers, direct the tax collector to collect the taxes with due dates and an interest rate. And I just want to make sure that I understand what your current policy is, or see if you want to revisit the current policy. I believe if I executed the commitment papers right now on your current policy, it would be that the due date is 9/15/2010 for the first half, most of the taxes having been prepaid. That the second half of the tax bill is due 3/15/2011, and that interest will be charged after June 30th, 2011. So I just would like it if you could confirm what your policy is, or perhaps amend what your policy is. I want to execute the commitment papers with the proper information on due date and on interest date.
Ask a question?
Yes, sure, Frank.
Do you see, I know there have been some people that have had concerns about the date, excuse me, the dates we picked for the idea of no interest or interest. Do you have any concern with these dates, or do they fall within guidelines of what we should be doing as far as the dates as written? I realize the format that you're going by. I guess my question is the last payment is due 3/15/2011, being 3 months after that the interest would start collecting. Is that typically how we do? Do we usually allow 3 months of payment, and then after that the interest actually starts gathering? I mean, I guess my question is just...
No, the interest
Typically, our
starts
interest
the next day.
date is the day after payments are due.
So we would be actually, did we actually just not correctly do what we did last time, and the date should have been the interest starts collecting on 3/15/2011? what was the other 3 months there for, I guess was the
It was
question.
my understanding it was because we were unclear as to what the amounts were, and there was stated hardships from people for the unknown amount, if you will, and we were trying to lessen the burden that would happen to taxpayers. So we were waiving the interest essentially for non-payment or underpayment of taxes for the fiscal year, was my understanding.
So that really doesn't play a role on, even though there are going to be taxes that are going to be gathering after the 315, it wouldn't actually, those taxes at that point wouldn't be interest-free. At that point in time, we'd have to make a determination for our next tax commitment, right? Since this actually goes 3 months into the,
No, I
after.
think what Mr. Van Tyne is asking us is, right now, if he does a commitment letter, there will be no interest charged on late taxes until June 30th. Anybody who pays their taxes after June 30th would get a 7% charge. And that's based on what the council voted on at a previous meeting.
Okay.
Now, in discussions with the public, it's been brought to some of our attention in meetings that some of the public people who have paid their taxes feel that that's somewhat of an unfair situation, and that they have asked, it's been brought to me, and I think they've asked in meetings before, that we would rethink that, and based on having a new commitment with all of the corrections, that we might reinstate that interest at the end of at the start of the second payments. So it would move back to March 16th.
How does council feel about that? Anyone else have opinions? I tend to agree
I
with Mike.
think we ought to leave it right the way it is.
So you
So
think
I-
it should be in January, I mean, in June? You
Yep.
think it should stay in June? I mean, personally, I tend to agree with Mike that, it's a little bit unfair that people can get a free loan almost off there by, not paying their taxes, and, 98% of people do, but, they don't get the bonus that someone who decided to delay would. So,
The biggest problem that I see is that this has put out a lot of people, a lot more than what we realize. As far as house payments going up to cover their taxes and all the stuff, and with all the inconveniences that this has created for the townspeople, I think we should leave it just exactly the way it is for this year, and let people work through this mess that we've created, and we'll deal with it next year.
Mark?
go ahead.
We vote, well, I didn't, but the town council voted to go till the end of June with no interest. If we go back on this in any way, it's gonna show that they can't trust us anymore. And that's the problem this town council has right now, is the people are starting, they don't trust us.
Okay.
I think we ought to just leave it the way it is this year and then go on from there.
Okay. So, any other opinions from council? Okay, I guess let's take a vote on that then, express our opinions, so that Mr. Van Tyne can get an actual council view on that. All right, do I hear a motion on our policy of when interest will kick in?
Would be, may I?
Sure.
Would it be better to actually just make a motion that we agree on the way it's written? I mean, would that be a possibility, make it so I'd understand?
Just leave it as it is.
Leave it as is?
I'd make a motion that we leave it the way it's written in the policy as
I'll
stated.
second that.
All right. Any discussion?
I'd just like to ask one question. I don't know, Jessica, if you know this off the top of your head, but what's our current tax collection rate percentage?
On the total tax commitment, we are just over 100% collected on that half that's due. So some of that is prepaid from what's due in March. So it's just over 100% collected on what we would have expected in September.
Well, what if you took out the prepays for next and a half, what would the percentage be? Okay.
Off the top of my head,
Okay.
but on the total tax commitment, what we should have collected for September, we are 100%.
Yeah.
Sure.
I do agree with Roger, is the idea that we actually voted on this to move it forward, and it'd be kind of unfair to back up from it now. But I also agree with Mike 100% that people actually say, I put money aside, I pay my taxes 100%. to make sure I do legally what I'm supposed to do. And unfortunately, next year, maybe I'll hold off into the end of the year if you do this again. So next year going into it, I think we need to look really deeply on how we make a vote on this, because it does give people incentive not to pay their taxes if they're not going to be penalized if they don't. And it really does, the incentive's not there to pay your taxes.
Right, I think we were trying to do the right thing, but maybe we rushed into it a little. All right. So all in favor of keeping it the way it is? All opposed?
Order passed 7-0.
Just to reiterate, what I will have on the tax commitment papers then will be that the first payment was due 9/15/2010. The second payment is due 3/15/2011, and interest will be charged at the rate of 7% on any unpaid balance after June 30th, 2011. Everybody agree?
Yes.
Yes.
You know, if I might say this too, this may just give somebody a little bit of a breathing room to try to make sure that their taxes and stuff are caught up.
Okay.
Go ahead.
The next thing I want to do is just go over the whole tax commitment process. One of the things that you have in your packet after my memo is called the Real Estate and Personal Property Audit Summary. And that is the valuation of the town. And it indicates a total valuation base, including the reimbursed portion of homestead, of $462,613,699. The billable amount of real estate valuation, the total billable amount is $454,676,949. That is a little bit more than the calculations that were made with the initial billing. The second attachment that you have is the warrant from Androscoggin County that directs the town of Lisbon to collect your county tax in the amount of $579,877.79. And that amount is right about in the middle of the page. The third thing that you have is a letter from the town manager to the former assessor, summarizing the amounts to be raised by taxation. I'll go over these on another form, but you can see that the county tax agrees with a few cents rounding to what was on the county tax warrant. The next item is a summary of your tax increment finance districts in town, and it documents the amount of captured assessed value in each one of those districts, and they total $8,613,144. The fifth page is a tax rate calculation that puts all of the above information into one tax calculation form. And I went over this kind of calculation at a workshop earlier this fall with the council. The appropriations that need to be raised this year are $579,878 for the county, $6,347,219 for the town, $5,275,781 for the school. Those gross appropriations, and I'm reading from the middle column that has the heading to set the rate. Those total $12,202,878. State municipal revenue sharing is estimated in the memo from Mr. Eldridge at $750,000. Other revenues projected to come in your budget in the fiscal year are $2,050,000 for total deductions from those gross appropriations of $2,800,000. That gives a net amount to be raised by taxation of $9,402,878. And if you go back a few pages, you will see that that corresponds, my calculations correspond to the same amount that is in the town manager's letter to the former assessor. So that's the amount that needs to be raised at a minimum for the commitment of taxes. And when an assessor or a board of assessors sets a tax rate in the town, state law provides that there can be a little bit of additional revenue raised in the rounding of a rate, and that amount is called overlay. And that amount cannot exceed 5%. And the minimum tax rate with absolutely no overlay is 0.020490. The maximum tax rate with a maximum overlay would be 0.211514. I tentatively chose a tax rate of 21.021, or $21 a thousand. That's 60 cents a thousand less than the tax bills that were issued in, I think, August. And that would raise an overlay of $234,137.82. On the second column, the third column actually, that says the actual commitment, you'll notice there are no adjustments made to the valuation of the town. In the second column, there's a negative adjustment for the amount of valuation in the TIFs. There's a positive adjustment of 80% of the reimbursable Betty valuation, and there's a positive adjustment of 1/2 of the reimbursable homestead exempt value. So I am adjusting the valuation of the town. In the right-hand column, instead of doing that, I've added the TIF revenue account of $180,876.02, and I've to the gross appropriations of the town. And I've added to the allowable deductions for the town the amount of Betty reimbursement and the amount of homestead reimbursement. The final sheet that you have before you is the same type of calculation form. However, this one is made using the Trio software that you have in the assessor's office and in the town office. And it just recalculates the same thing in a slightly different manner. It's a verification process. The only real difference is that the amount of revenue to be raised in the TIF in this program is an input. It's not a calculation that's made simultaneously with the setting of the tax rate as it is in the previous page. That's the way things look. I think I will be setting the tax rate, unless you have some objection to the thing going forward, in the very near future, perhaps as early as tomorrow. And get it done. And everyone will receive a new tax bill. The new tax bill, to the best of my understanding, this is not something that's done routinely, it's something that's done in our situation, your situation, because you've got a rather unique, unusual, singular situation to the best of my knowledge. The new bill will really be, in most cases, more of a statement. It will say that your first half bill was this much, that you have a credit or a remaining balance of this much. It will present what has been prepaid according to the payments that have been received to date, and show any credit that the taxpayer has or any balance that the taxpayer has. And your bill, I think I have one here, is a two-part bill. It shows the first payment date and the amount due, and a second payment date and amount due. It's my understanding that as a courtesy and as an effort to have your tax collections managed as well as they can with as high amount of collection as you can achieve, that you send out a second reminder sometime usually in February. It's a two-part bill in the first place, but then you follow it up with a reminder that there's a payment due in the spring, and it would be my understanding that the town will send out a new tax bill for the fall, follow it up as you normally do with a reminder in February. And if you have any questions about what I've done, how these calculations are made, I'll be happy to try to answer them.
Council have any questions for Mr. Van Tynen?
Can you give us some idea, Bill, for the people that are going to be listening to this and for the people that are in the audience, how much of a difference that's going to make for the average tax bill? To simplify it so that they have some idea of what they're going to be looking for.
60 cents per thousand.
Per thousand.
All right.
It's
And we was charged what on the first bill?
your initial bill had a tax rate of $21.60. Now it's going to be 21. So there'll be a little bit of a reduction, not a great reduction. And some people will have an increase in their bill. Not a lot of people, but as I've told you at some of your previous meetings, we looked at all the valuations in town, looked at the 2009 valuation, looked at the 2010 valuation, and if we saw an unexplained difference on why something didn't go up with the same factor that was used for most property, if it appeared that there was no valid reason that it shouldn't go up, we adjusted the valuation upward accordingly. That's not going to happen. There's not lots and lots of those, but there are some that did not receive the correct bill the first time. Most people will see a little bit of a downward adjustment in their bill. The vast majority.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Mike.
Can we send a letter in that tax bill, kind of explaining what we've been through? You know, a brief, just one pager. I mean, maybe Bill can help us put together, you know, what we found, what has come, you know, through, and that there is this adjustment or potential increase if you weren't adjusted appropriately the first time through or whatever. Just as, information going out in this next bill.
Certainly makes sense to me.
We can do that.
You did do that, Steve? Okay.
May I?
Sure.
And again, just, and I'm sure maybe at some point in time, even Steve will explain it to us, but now that the commitment's actually, say tomorrow you do the commitment, at some point, do we try to figure out on what the next step is from there, from your standpoint, and for what we ought to be thinking about as a council of where we move forward from there, because there's still a lot of work to be done. But I know the commitment was the key factor, but there was a lot to do after that, and you mentioned even the idea of outlining a plan to move us forward, so maybe you can give us some ideas on that.
I certainly have some ideas. I fleshed out those ideas a bit with some correspondence with Steve. And putting some budgetary numbers on some of the things requires me to do actually quite a bit of work. I mean, there's no easy way for me to know exactly how many mobile homes you have in town. There's not an easy way for me to know how many properties that you have that are over X amount in valuation and maybe should be reviewed. So I have to do a little homework and analysis in order to flesh out some details. But in my opinion, the town should not just make the reconciliations that we made in a short period of time that we did to get this done. I think you have some tax assessment, record keeping, valuation issues that you should comprehensively address in a going forward manner.
Good.
But at this stage, I'm glad just to get this done.
Absolutely, you've done a really good job too. I know it wasn't easy, so.
Any further questions? Go ahead, Charlie. Up to the,
I'd like to know, did we complete a land revaluation? And these numbers reflect that, or was that not part of this?
What was accomplished this year with apparently a great deal of misunderstanding is the assessor's office, prior to the commitment of taxes, looked at a lot of different things. Your tax assessor did an awful lot of work. He was a very diligent worker. In order to bring the process to a conclusion in a reasonable way and improve the town's ratio, you were at what anybody with any realistic level of common sense would have called an unrealistic ratio and an illegal valuation ratio. To bring it into compliance, there was a 1.32 multiplier applied to the previous land value and to the previous building value for all the routine properties in town. It wasn't done to the mobile homes. They were looked at in a different way, a way that I don't fully understand actually at this stage, but they were looked at and their valuations were adjusted, but they weren't adjusted nearly to the degree of the 1.32. And that's what was accomplished for this year, and it brought the town at a ratio of 80%. But it's this stage, it's a very cumbersome, complicated, unnecessarily complicated, cumbersome process. It just is. I could be happy to show you how it works in the office, and if somebody wants it explained more here, I will, but it's a bit of a nightmare. Just administratively, it's a lot of work that in most modern assessment offices somebody has to do because they're automated. They have records that are realistic for today's situation. They have information that's not anciently gathered they have much better record-keeping systems.
Dot, would you like to ask a question of Mr. Van Tynen?
Yes, I would. Mr. Van Tynen, was the land revaluation completed?
Not completely. I worked with your previous assessor on the development of a new land schedule. We tested that new land schedule against sales through the process of sales ratio studies. And I also worked with your previous assessor trying to improve the building schedules and the depreciation schedules and some other things as well. A great deal of the information was entered into a computer system. Your computer system here using Trio software. I've been doing this kind of work for a long time. I've been doing this kind of work since 1977. And I've never seen any town structure a situation where one person was given so much work. It's an enormous amount of work to enter all the land data on every parcel of land in a 10,000 population town. It's an enormous amount of work to enter all of the building data from ancient records in a 10,000 population town. A lot of work was done, but it was, I believe, the decision of your previous assessor that it couldn't be accomplished and implemented comprehensively as well as he would have liked it to have been for 2010. So there's an awful lot of information in the computer. There's a land schedule, but it was not implemented for this year.
One more question. So, for the tax purposes for 2010, 2011, the old land revaluations were used with your multiplier?
Yes.
Any further questions from council or the audience? All right, well, thank you, Bill. I appreciate that. Okay, next item.
Is under B, Town Manager's Report.
In your packets, I gave you some material about something called practical training for newly elected officials. I'm wondering if this council is at all interested. I did get some emails back from some of you that thought this would be a great idea. It's basically, it's a legal firm that has a municipal side to it. Their name is Eaton Peabody. It's called Eaton Peabody Consulting. The retired town manager from Brunswick is part of that organization, Don Garish, and he has for the last 2 years been presenting to councils a training session on local government. I think I sent you also the tear sheet of what the program entails. Is there any interest in this council to do something like that?
That's a great idea.
Thanks, sir.
Is it something that you think we could do on December 14th if we hold our public hearing at 6 o'clock for December 14th, which is a Tuesday, and then have Bill come in or Dawn come in on at 7 o'clock to do that?
I think a public hearing may be stretched longer than
Yeah,
that.
You
so
think?
I don't think we should
Do you want to
that
move it
night.
into January?
I don't think the 14th is going to work, so.
Well, Probably better, with the Christmas holidays, probably be better in January if
Yeah.
we could.
Okay, we can move it to the second Tuesday of January, if that would work for everybody.
Steve, how long, may I ask, how long of a,
It's about a 2 to 2.5 hour, very participatory event. So, and it's open to the public if they want to attend. It's just a workshop environment, but he does a very good job from what I've heard. So, we'll schedule it then for the second Tuesday of January then. Thank you. Also, some news on the 39 Village Street property that we've been in the court system for several years on. The appeal that was made was denied by the court. That is the final step. So on December 21st, we will have this on the agenda for the council to decide in what method we would like to clean up this property and move on. So, and we'll have a memorandum out to you that we received from the court today. I'd like to thank Roger and Mike for all the work and time that they've put into this. So, that's all I have.
Next item, Twyla.
Is under audience participation. At this time, those in the audience who wish to come forward may come forward to use the microphone to address the council.
Okay, Mr. Fillmore.
My name's Larry Fillmore. I live in Lisbon. With the new regime that we now have here on the council, I would hope that for a change, that the residents of Lisbon be given correct information. Since I've been coming to this board when we started out with a taxation problem, every meeting that I've come to, the people sitting up here have put out bogus information to the residents. I think it's time we stop that. Now, Fern is a great person who likes facts. I'm going to give you your facts because I know you're going to ask me for 'em. The first thing was when the taxation came up, it was said, sorry, it's done. Okay, suck it up. Then we find out that's not true. We have alternatives. Then we were told we had a valid commitment. Then we find out that's not true either. Okay? So then we move on. We were told that the Feeney case was closed. It's not. There is a meeting coming up sometime this month to figure out where we are on that issue. But the information was put out, it's a closed case. And at the last meeting, I asked that the council conduct an independent audit of the Economic Development Department to support the director, the new director, because I felt we owed him that. So then I was told that there's no need for us to do that because we do it annually, it's already done. But when I came into the town office to review that, I find out that's not true. There was an independent audit done at the town by the town here, okay, that we got a briefing on today in the workshop. Very thorough. The audit did make one line in the financial statement about the economic development. However, when I asked for the economic development's audits, I was shown a letter by a member of the USDA, which is part of their money, that was dated in 2008. Now to me, that's not annually because we're not in 2009, we're in 2010. Rosie, when she left here, submitted a letter to the USDA closing out her portion of it. And that was in June. We didn't get anything back. There was no follow-up on it. Okay? The Economic Development Department is made up of several different color of money. I'll call it color money. State, federal, grants, things of this nature. But we only have the USDA's on file. Where's the rest of them? So the information about an annual audit of the Economic Development Department, again, was incorrect. I would like to see correct information come out of this meetings. Now, I know that audit that they did reflect a financial statement, that was all. In the workup, there were no comments other than, let me see if I can pull this out for you right quick. Our opinion on the government activities, and I'm assuming they're going to say that that's part of it, and the general fund, which is separate now, so two different things, were unqualified. If it's unqualified, who's doing the auditing? If they're not qualified to perform their duties, okay, then we're paying for nothing. Now, I don't appreciate things like we're unqualified. Okay? Things like that just don't go with me. It says under the compliance with OMB Circular A-133, which is their guidelines, it says, however, providing opinion on compliance with those provisions was not an objective of the audit. So that's telling me that they're not looking at us being in compliance with OMB Circular A-133. What are we doing? Does anybody have a clue? Things like that should not go unnoticed by the council. We need to pay more attention to what's going on. There may be a good rational explanation of this, but it's not in the report. There's a lot of words, a lot of things that say nothing. Why can't we get an accurate report telling us if we are in fact compliant with OMB Circular A-133? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fillmore. Go ahead, Dot.
Again, I hate to beat a dead horse, but the town council keeps saying, and going back to the town charter, and going back to this recall, I read 2 violations of the town charter, and when it comes to something like this, you want to throw out the town charter. It doesn't mean a thing, and yet the town charter is your guideline. It's the way it was formed for the betterment of the town, to run the town, and yet violations of the town charter by a council member, might as well just throw out the town charter when it comes to something like that. I'm all for a public hearing. I think people need to be informed, and if they're going to vote on something, they need to be informed as to how they're going to vote. And but violation of the town charter is a violation. I don't care how you spell it, how you say it. It's still a violation and should be upheld.
Thank you, Dot. Okay, and in response to Mr. Fillmore's comments, one area that we can explore in the future too is looking into what's called a forensic audit, where they go deeper into tracking the actual expenditures of the department. Something that we can think about as a council if we just want to restore some confidence to that department. Maybe something we'll put on an agenda for our future discussion.
May I add something then also?
Yeah.
No. The, being on the audit committee also, one of the things that, is interesting when you go through the audit, because every year as an audit committee, one of the reasons, when I first got on the council, there actually was an audit committee. The first time we would hear from the auditor was at a public meeting. The council was not informed at all. So that's kind of why the audit committee was formed, the idea of ahead of time to direct the auditors to do over and beyond their forensics. So every year there is, 2 to 3 different areas from the school and the town that is actually hand-chosen by the audit committee or the administrators to actually go in to look deeper and to try to get more information. The qualified, unqualified thing was really tough for me to understand at first, because I just didn't understand how that worked. Until I found out it isn't the idea of the statement of qualified, unqualified isn't the people doing the audit. It's them qualifying and unqualifying us as a town to have a proper audit done. And this year, and Mike can contest, I mean, that's one of the reasons we actually had the water department come into our meetings this year is one of the biggest reasons that our qualification is not correct is because the town has a different audit system than the water department. So it can't actually have the proper qualifications because it's separate. So they're not looking at monies in the same book. They're 2 different books. So the idea of them stating qualified, unqualified isn't the people doing the audit. It's actually what they're looking at for us to be able to say, is the information there to make this, to qualify this to be a proper audit. They still do it, and we were reassured this year, even with the water department coming in, that everything is in order between the 2 books. Somehow we would have to merge the 2 to take away all the qualifieds or unqualifieds. And as an audit committee, that's one of the things that we're going to meet on after, and whether I'm on that committee or not, really push forth the idea that over the next year, for the first time ever, Lisbon actually does something to make it all one big piece. So it's looked at one time. And it's really a date issue, not so much than a one issue with the water department, because their yearly calendar is different than our calendar because of the PUC and a lot of other factors that I just had a hard time understanding how we were 2 totally different people. So I think one of the things that you asked for, which I think is there, is the direction that the audit committee needs to really fulfill and actually say, these are the areas this year that we want you to look under on the magnifying glass. They do a general audit, but there's actually each year there's certain areas that you can actually, what's the name for that, Steve? They test. Meaning they go in, they pull every number and make sure that that actually works out at the end. That is part of the audit process they do. And Mike, I believe there's 3 areas this year, right? They were tested, 2 for the town, 1 for the school. And again, that's in the past has actually been kind of driven by the administration. Hopefully in the future, and it is already, it's being driven by council people and citizens to actually bring that forth. So I mean, I think that some of the stuff that you're asking for is kind of working forward. It's just a slow process, and again, there's a lot to take in, and I'd be lying to you if I understood a tenth of it. But there's a lot of it there that does happen. I don't think there's anything in our town that hasn't really been looked at when it comes to numbers. I feel pretty comfortable about that.
The only thing I'm trying to say to you is this. Leaving statements open like that is wrong. If the unqualified is because of the water department, then say it's because of the water department.
It is stated in the letter. That's one thing that they do state every year, and in the letters that they give to us, they actually explain why the reason of the qualification or not qualification.
In another separate letter from what I just stated to you.
All right, any further audience participation? Go ahead, ma'am.
When I spoke earlier about the petition and the upcoming vote, I spoke in response to the rest of the conversation that was going on. I'd like to just clarify that very briefly, I hope. I have concerns about the petition that go beyond the removal of a council member, and that's why I'm concerned about it. The petition basically states that Councillor Bowie denied a councillor the right to place an item on the agenda. And this is contrary to our town charter. As far as I can see, it's my understanding that other councillors or other audience members may misinterpret what's going on, just as it's Councillor Lunt's duty to maintain order and to maintain the flow of the meeting. I think that when Councillor Bowie acted as he did, I think that he felt that he was acting in that role. If people's feelings were hurt, then I'm sorry. But the key is, for me, that everybody's dancing around the issues. Nobody's saying, well, Michael said that so-and-so can't talk on this issue. Well, who's so-and-so, and when was it said, and why was it said, and how did it happen? I mean, I, as well as a lot of other people in the community, just don't know what that blanket statement means. It's so vague. He denied somebody the right to place an item on the agenda. Which councillor, when, which item, and why? Okay? So that's one of the reasons I would like to have a hearing. Second, the issue of all councillors being consulted with when the chair is dealing with the town manager, also addressing our town charter. One of the main responsibilities of the chair is to meet with the town manager, just as the chair of the school committee meets with the superintendent on a regular basis. I think it's the individual council member's duty, as a council member, to contact the chair if you have an issue or a concern. It's not the chair's duty to call everybody up or email everybody every time there's a little thing. If there's an issue that you as a counselor find a problem with or have a concern about, then go find out. That's your job as an elected official. It's not his job to go chase after you and make sure you got all the details. The idea that Councillor Bowie used improper influence regarding the use of town funds is what I originally addressed. It's a serious accusation, and I still haven't seen any proof, evidence. It's another one of those things that the only reason I have any more clarity on it today is because of the tax-paying non-resident who gave her opinion. It seems to me that a misuse of funds would be addressed by the town council right away. If we're going to accuse Councillor Bowie of doing something, how come we didn't accuse the town council of sitting back and letting it happen? So I want to know where the evidence is. I want to know what funds, and this is what I'm asking for the hearing that we've all agreed is needed. I want to know which funds, how much money, when was it done, to whom was it given, and how was it given to that person so that this misappropriation was able to happen. I just want to know that. I think that we, as voters, as people who vote for the town councilors, this is information we need to have. And I'm not saying that any of this didn't happen. I'm saying that there's no evidence that it happened. There's no proof. And I haven't heard a single person tell me anything that offers evidence or proof other than the woman who offered us evidence against it. So I really want to see that. Finally, Councillor Bowie has been accused of failing to properly preside over a town council meeting. I touched on that a little. I've been to a few meetings. I don't come to a lot of them. I watch the recordings of them. I just see that as a blanket statement that could be applied to any person who has to preside over a larger group of people. And I think that we need to take into consideration the fact that every person on the town council has responsibilities within the town council, outside the town council. Every one of them is an actual human being. And so, yes, they do make mistakes. Are they going to try to repair them if they find out about them? Yes. Are we going to attack every single person every single time? I would hope not. The issue of non-resident speaking came up when an earlier person spoke. She spoke. People can speak if the chair allows it. There's nothing. Mr. Lunt allowed it. Mr. Bowie allowed it or disallowed it according to his, perception of what needed to go on. I think it's important to know the truth about each and every one of these 4 allegations before the town actually votes on a recall. That's why I'm really glad that I didn't bring it up, but somebody else brought up a hearing. I'm glad that we're going to do it. When recently Fern asked the whole council whether Councillor Bowie should be removed, not one of them said he should. And if anyone would care to look back at the recordings of that meeting, nobody said, not one councillor said he should be removed. We can't go on go onto a vote without a substantial reason. I think that the promoters of the petition felt that they had a need to do something, but there's a lack of evidence, and I don't see legitimate proof to make me want to spend so much money on doing something like a vote for alleged infractions. I have one last thing I would like to say. Councillor Bowie has spent many, many years serving our town, and I think that to assume that he's wielding some sort of power somehow by doing his job as a chair, which is now Mr. Lunt's job, to accuse him of all these things. He's a member of this community too. He has a vested interest in every single thing that this council talks about. And I think that we need to continue to respect him as that counselor while we consider the facts. So I'm hoping to see facts. I'm hoping to see clear responses to every one of these. And I'm not saying that he's hasn't done anything and he's completely innocent. I'm also not saying that I'm willing to believe that he's this giant monster that has been pictured for us on the petition. And so I urge everybody to don't just come to meetings. Please talk to your neighbors and talk to the other people who you know, especially in our district where we're going to be deciding this. This is important. Almost 400 people signed a petition. If those 350 or 400 people go to the polls and vote to remove Councillor Bowie, that means that the rest of the 1,600 voters had no say. So, did you have a response? Okay. I just feel that, there are almost around 2,000 people who are voters in our district. I know that our town has a poor voter turnout, and it's too bad. I know that, I'm going to make my final decision based on what I feel are the real facts, but I just think I think it's too bad that it went to petition. As I told Dot on Election Day, I felt that there were other ways to resolve each and every one of these issues. None of those steps were taken. Do I know what they are? No. Do I have confidence that they exist? Yes. And if somebody felt strongly enough about any one of them, then something could have been done without going to petition. So this could be a lesson to us, not just about the charter. I just think that these statements, or each one of them, is not well-founded, and we need to think about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
My name is Ross Cunningham, chairman of the Promotions Committee, a volunteer group here in town. I know a lot of you have seen me doing stuff here in town. I want to welcome you all. Thank you for signing up for service. We appreciate it. As new councilman, I'd like to bring something to light, and that is that you've hired a new economic development director. We're all working very hard to push this town forward, okay? when we choose not to resolve our differences amongst ourselves, and citizens choose to get very involved, that's great, okay? More power to you. I think it's great. I work in Brunswick, and I left a little early to get here tonight, and I said I'm going to a town council meeting, and someone said, "Oh, is Lisbon fighting again?" I said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Oh, it's always in the paper. Lisbon's fighting about something, or someone's not, you know." So I just want to bring it to light that what we do and say as citizens, as counselors, handcuffs your new economic development director. When a town goes to try to get a business in town, and they Google us, because they will, and they always do, or they go sit down at the coffee shop and listen. They hear all this stuff that we're talking about all the time. And, you know, if we could just talk as people, resolve these in a back room, and not let it get to this point, we'd have much more success. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle, did you want to speak?
For once, I actually wasn't going to say anything. It was unfortunate. I was traveling and wasn't able to participate Saturday night, but driving through town at about...
Michelle, can you pick the mic a little closer?
Can't hear me?
Yeah.
I was driving through town. Unfortunately, I was out of state and could not be here, but I caught the last glimpse of it and was amazed on Saturday night at what was going on in town when I saw the horse-drawn rides going on. It kind of brought back, I guess, pictures of what you see Postcard Maine being. So for those that were involved, I was very impressed and appreciated what I saw as I drove through town, and anybody else that wasn't from town that might have seen that, I think it gave a good impression. With that said, I think there's a few facts that have been left out. It doesn't take 400 votes. It takes 608 minimally. So the opinion of 400 people isn't what's going to count. In order for it to be a valid election, it takes 30% of the vote of the voters that were there at that last election. Correct?
District, correct.
So 400 people may have had that opinion. It's going to take 608 people minimally to come out and say, I want to vote, I want to have an opinion. Otherwise, it's not a valid recall election. So I think that's something that needs to be kept in mind when you discuss your facts that you're hearing, because I think this has been kind of talked to death tonight since we've already talked about having a hearing. So that's something I would like brought out and at least put out there. Some of the things additionally that were just addressed, I think if we have been coming to meetings for the last 3 years, there would have been maybe a few examples of it. Whether or not it's valid for what was brought forth, that's for the public to determine, not the counselors or anybody else. It's for the public to determine. So keep in mind, though, that if you're going to change the way this is done, and I think going forward there's been a lot of points brought out that I think would validate and support the need for you guys to take another look at this and work with Mr. Terrio on appropriate language to look at them. If you're going to look at amendments, this should be one of them that you're going to look at, and rewriting it and making it out there so that it's not a matter of, if you don't like my scarf or my sweater, that you take out a petition to do something, that there be some additional validating factors in that, if that so be the way that you decide to go. But it was going to require an amendment, not just 7 people saying this is what we want.
That's correct.
So
And we have to have a public hearing for that, too.
correct, you do. But I just want to keep that in mind. And if the people that took out the petition don't wish to participate in that public hearing, you guys are going to be the ones that are going to be putting out there what's out there, and it's not you're not going to change somebody else's opinion or point of view. I mean, they have the right to come out and vote. So the number of votes that are needed are real close to, I believe, what Mr. Bowie beat me in the last year election on. It's real close as far as numbers. So again, you've got to have a valid election, and that's something you need to keep in mind. It's not just the number of people that signed that petition.
Thank you, Michelle.
And again, I was actually very impressed as I drove through town and was disappointed Saturday night that we were out of town and could not be here. But I was actually very thrilled when I drove through town and saw it. So it was a great job by all that did that. And I believe Mr. Cunningham had a lot to do with that. So.
Thank you. All right. Next item, Twyla?
We have no appointments. The next item is under council communications.
I have something.
Okay.
Mary Main Street was a success, thanks to Ross. And I'm very glad that somebody else is seeing, other than myself, who's been harping on this for 2 years, that those kinds of things do make a difference. And they do make evenings and moments in time in our town memorable. Ross and his wife and several others worked very hard to coordinate that. It was great. We spoke to the ladies next door at Here's to You, and they had over 200 people go through their shop that evening. The fire station was hopping. There were photos with Santa. The library had carolers out there, a lot of fun stuff. Where were you, Diane? I missed you. Okay, I'll forgive you. But your group was doing a good job while you weren't there. They were really doing a good job, and it was great. And I've talked about it before, and these are the kinds of things we're trying to do. These are the kinds of things that Ross worked so hard on, the Concerts in the Park series and the father-daughter dance that's coming up in February. Those are the kinds of things we're trying to solidify our town as a fun place, a great place to live, and that's what we're working on. Thank you, Ross. You did a wonderful job.
We're in councilor communications right now, ma'am. So you missed your turn, but yeah. Show up next 2 weeks. Any other further councilor communications? Go ahead, Fern.
And welcome, Roger. Thank you. I think it'll be fun.
Yep.
And also, congratulations, Mark. I just want to make sure that moving forward, that people realize that Mark is a citizen, a regular person. He's not a lawyer. So hopefully, we all work with you and make it all happen. I'm pretty excited about some of the workshops that hopefully Steve has plans for the council, because to be honest with you, going through the council, a lot of times you have a lot of questions as a council, what you're supposed to be doing, what you're not supposed to be doing, and sometimes we're looked upon very detailed. So again, hopefully that'll work out and things will be a little bit easier, so you don't follow the legacy of the last two chairs, okay? Hopefully that doesn't happen to you.
This is the kiss of death.
Yeah, exactly, yep, exactly. Beyond that, I agree. I mean, I was out of town on Saturday night, but we kind of rushed through town just as it was getting dark, just to make sure we got to town park just for the time for the tree lighting. We went downtown and it was really neat. And not only just being down there, seeing what's happening, but looking around and actually seeing the stuff that's apparent. I mean, the new painting up on the building, and what people can actually sit around and point at, actually say, this is what we've done. It's pretty exciting, instead of looking around saying, what didn't we do, what did we tear down? So thank you very much. I know you guys do a lot of work, and a lot of it goes unnoticed, but we do appreciate everything you do, because it is making a difference. It really is.
One thing I might add is Frank Anicetti was open, the Moxie store was open, and Frank was beaming. He was so excited. He had customers in there all night who had bought lots of things for gifts, and we had tried to encourage him to do it last year, and he just wouldn't. And we had a citizen who really got him to do it this year, and Frank, I haven't seen Frank so excited in years. He was very, very excited, and it was a real boost to him, so it was great.
Thank you. And I also want to say the Thanksgiving dinner that we had at the Baptist Church was a big success. We had, between the people that were there and the people that we sent meals to, there was over 100 people that we served. And I spent a couple hours there washing pots and pans. And it was actually, you think it's your Thanksgiving day. I don't want to give that up. I want to watch football. But it's really rewarding to do that and to see the gratitude that people have for you coming out there and helping them. So, we had a big turnout in terms of volunteers. We had a lot of kids from the school and other volunteers, and that was a great success. Anything else? All right, next item.
Is Order 2010-195 to go into executive session per 1 MRSA, Section 405-6A, Personnel Matter.
Okay, do I have a motion for that?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it. All right, and all in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.